I'll be very quickly. We actually submitted the one letter from all of us to keep it short and sweet. We want to work with the superintendents and members of the community. We don't want level 3 schools to fall into level 4 schools. Just like Mary Medina, we want to make sure that all of our students are getting the benefits of the Achievement Gap Bill. There actually are a number of victories that have occurred as a result of the Achievement Gap Bill. Lots of lessons to be learned from some of our level 4 schools around the state. I won't read them. I'll send further testimony about 3 specific examples in Springfield, which is one of my locals, where they've actually seen improvement, and Desi has actually done some digging to see what those things are. And one key focus is actually school building leadership and transparency in school governance and having teachers actually be involved. We really want to drive the decision-making down to the school level and have the teachers be intimately involved in making decisions about curriculum, length of the school day, various other levers of and change in the school. MTA has been supportive of expanded learning time for almost 10 years now, and I personally have been involved in developing 2 of those schools in Cambridge and promoting them around the state. We also strongly promote innovation schools where teachers and community members can work together with the district. So through this bill, we hope to draw attention to those level 3 schools that are struggling, and we don't want them to fall into level 4. We want to work together to make sure that they avoid that.
Chairwoman Tice, Chairwoman Chandia, and members of the Joint Committee on Education. I am Tom Gosnell, President of the American Federation of Teachers, Massachusetts. And our mantra is basically, we want what's good for students, fair to teachers, and collaboratively done. And I'll emphasize the collaboratively done, and I'll give you a specific example. The achievements of the Merkland School in Lowell are a stunning example of successful collaboration between union and management, both of whom believe that education of the students is paramount. The Merkland School was a level 4 school. Then it became a level 2 school. Now it is a level 1 school. Both the teachers and the administrators realized that the teachers needed much more time to collaborate and consult with one another to develop the best strategies for teaching the children. After all, they know their students' academic needs and abilities better than anyone else. The extra time for after-school collaboration and consultation was compensated. This approach can be duplicated throughout the Commonwealth. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, thank you very much for the time you've given us over the months that we've worked on this. I'm Paul Davis, Superintendent of Schools in Revere, President of the Massachusetts Superintendents Association, and former co-chair of the Urban Superintendents Network, where this particular thought process about having superintendents empowered with autonomies that legislation grants to others outside of the schools. For example, charter schools. Never have we worked at the cellular level to fix problems in our schools by giving superintendents the autonomies that have been given elsewhere at cost. This is a no-cost option and a first time when these parties have been together saying, give us the autonomies you have given to others. We can fix the schools. The unions are working with us, superintendents, across the state, and especially the urban centers, to work together if we are given the autonomies that this legislation grants to us. You need not increase a charter cap. That's costly. Why not give us, who want it willingly and are here before you now, the same power that the law grants to charter schools? Autonomies to work time, autonomies to work schedule, autonomies to work together. This is an unprecedented alliance in Massachusetts time. We have the ability to make a huge difference, and it won't cost the taxpayer a penny. We won't have to support another charter school facility. We won't have operational costs duplicated. We ask for these powers through this legislation. We think it's powerful for really getting to the cellular level of improvement in our schools. Thank you for your time.
Honorable Chairs, my name is Richard Stuckman, President of the Boston Teachers Union, and I'd like to just follow up with what my colleague on the right just said. That this is an unprecedented occasion that people who are customarily at odds over educational reform are on the same page. And we have met many times over the last few months, and we are of the opinion that there are a few key essentials to a school's success. Extra time that is both productive and enriching, collaboration between and among administration and staff, dedicated planning, and a healthy buy-in from all parties, just as is a healthy buy-in from all of us on this panel. We believe that this House bill will do exactly what we need to be done and will prevent many schools from going into the level 4 status that we're precipitously close right now. So we urge your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions for any members of the panel? Representative
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you to the panel. I find it very ironic that we look at this legislation and we talk about stakeholder groups, and Mr. Toner mentioned specifically about bringing all of those key players to the table. And in 1992, when we were crafting the 93 Reform Act, we had a movement to create site-based management, and it failed in the legislature. And we created school advisory councils, which have worked in some districts and in others have been a sham of democracy, quite frankly. So my question to the panel is, what is in this legislation that will empower you to do things that you cannot do if you had good institutional leadership and you used your school advisory council to develop the plan, to engage the stakeholders, and to do what we talked about in 1993? What specifically in here do you need that you can't do with the assets you have under the current law?
Well, I'll give you an answer to that. I believe that you mentioned what you said is accurate. And it doesn't work in some places and doesn't others. This is going to be a very public process. We're going to be asking the department, using their metrics, to declare what those schools are, who are close or moving towards level 4, who will be stagnant, that have not made adequate progress. And we're going to have a very public process. It's going to require a number of different stakeholders: the parents, the school personnel, the school principal, the superintendent, to be part of a process very publicly to pronounce these are schools that have a period of time in which to make substantive change. If they don't, they have essentially written off themselves because they're now going to move to level 4. And they're going to then be entering into a process that many of the level 4 schools don't appreciate or don't want. So there's an incentive for them to make change, because if they don't, then they're heading to a worst case scenario. That's the difference.
No, I think it comes down to a belief system, and I think what's happened with this legislation and in this time is that teachers and administrators are seeing things the same. That's where the power is going to come from. We can fix our schools working with our teachers. I have 11 schools. 4 of them are under aggressive change because teachers know I believe in them and have empowered them to make major decisions in their school. Some of them are going a longer school day by their design, not my design. When you give teachers the right to make decisions at the site level, as you talked about, and when administration supports those teachers and believes in them, which is what this legislation calls for, we can make unprecedented gains. You need not hire people from the outside to do that. Give us the chance for a couple of years with this legislation.
Can you say, how do you factor in your strategy parental accountability and student accountability? Where's that in kind of what you want to do about it? And is that going to be part of kind of instruction in a level 2 school? So how does that factor?
Yeah, so part of the structure of this is going to require that you're going to bring parents in an unprecedented way to that school. It's going to be part of the solution. So they're going to have to be part of the major stakeholder in whatever that improvement plan is going to be. So that's a substantive difference. So that's one plan. And having them work towards the plan is going to have to ultimately approved at a higher level.
One of the key strategies in all those schools that I didn't want to read them off to you, but in Springfield, and I'll turn the testimony in later, he is parent engagement. In fact, in Springfield, the NEA, my national affiliate, gave Springfield $1.25 million to do community and parent outreach. And I think from many of the successful schools, whether they be in Boston, through the level 4 process of the English charter school program that the mayor talked about, you saw in the faculty of the school actually reaching out to the parents. We need to do a better job of that as teachers and educators. And as Tom said earlier, this is going to be a very public process. This is going to allow for us to go to our district, to our leadership, and to our school parent leadership and say, look, this is the situation. Under these benchmarks and metrics, your school is in danger of slipping further into level 4, and we have a choice to make right here and right now. Are we going to come together and work together to talk about expanded learning time, improve professional development, improve building leadership, engaging the community, or you're just going to let this happen to you and let somebody else take control of what changes that?
I think that Merkland School in Lowell, which has gone from level 4 to level 1, which places enormous emphasis on collaboration among all the parties in the school, is an example.
Senator Jenny.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm curious if there is any rigorous study of turnaround schools that have changed and what are the characteristics. I mean, there's always anecdotal things that people do and we don't know which ones work and which ones do, how would you know what the first thing? I hear the idea of collaboration, but when you get into the room with a group of people, do you have any rigorous studies of schools which have been successful with the same children, with the same students, not changing the demographics, but changing the achievement of the kids? Are there any rigorous studies of schools that have undergone that transformation?
Well, the study I've been referring to is the one that's been done by the department itself, the Level 4 2012 Site Monitoring Report. And the schools I was citing were the ones in Springfield. But in those reports, effective school leadership is one of the #1 issues, is having effective school leadership that engages its teachers, is transparent about and focused on key goals, not trying to do everything, 20 different goals, but focusing on some key high leverage priorities and having everybody moving in the same direction. That report, we can get a copy of that report to you, but that's what I'm aware of in the state on our turnaround schools right now.
And again, Senator, I would also say, I'm repeating myself, but really emphasizing, the Merkland did go from level 4 to level 1. Okay, is that a rigorous study? No. But are there real results? Yes.
The only other comment I'd make, if we sit with a monthly basis, all the urban superintendents, and for many of the districts that have been level 4, I would say that there are 3 factors that they have cited continuously. One is time, student time. Another is targeted professional development, focused in a very comprehensive, significant way about targeting where you want to make the improvements in what's going on in that school, and certainly leadership.
Anyone who has not yet asked a question?
Just very quickly, Justin, I just want to thank you and recognize you for your report. Whether it's not every day that we see AMT, meets you, the MTA, all together behind
Just a brief follow-up. In the legislation talking about stakeholder groups, I would urge us to consider at the appropriate levels that a student from that school be part of the stakeholder group. And that was original dialogue in '92. But as the Senate Chair just said, I want to applaud all of you for being here together, for working with the chair and the offices here for a period of time. But I also want to issue a challenge. Any bill in this legislature takes a while for it to make it through the committee and make it to the floor and go through that process. And I'll go back to the question that I originally answered of what is preventing us from doing this now. And I challenge each of you in your districts, whether you're AFT affiliates or MTA affiliates, to get to the local leadership level and today, begin the turnaround of these schools by using school advisory councils, getting the principals to engage the stakeholders that are in this legislation, looking at school improvement plans and using the matrix that you want us to put in legislation. Use what we have today, begin the turnaround, and we'll do the best we can to make the legislative tools necessary. But under the existing statutes, let's get the same leaders that are standing in front of me standing together at the local level, and let's begin the turnaround today. Thank you.
I just want to comment on that. I want you to know that part of the reason we're here also is the union leadership anyway, had a meeting just a couple of weeks ago with all the urban local leaders, and they want to pursue this. And I will just say, and this is no comment on my two superintendent colleagues, they've said we do want to participate in the collaborative process, but it has to be collaborative and not just here's the plan and agree to it. So we want to be collaborative. In fact, all of our organizations are part of it. We call Massachusetts Education Partnership. It has $1.5 million behind it to help support collaboration at the urban and gateway city level. And they're actually working with eight districts right now.
Thank you very much for your.
Thank you. Thank you.
That concludes the number. And I would just ask, in the interest of time, if those of you who are planning on testing, have signed up to testify on multiple bills, if you might just mention when you come up to testify for the first time on those other bills, so that we can, then we would not have to testify later.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Madam Chair Chandia, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Mike Canavan, and it's my distinct pleasure to be the first one to wish you happy Teacher Appreciation Day. Good morning, if anybody else wishes to do that. So it is can't believe that I can do that while everybody's here. I'm joined by Justin Tang, teacher of Boston Public Schools, and John Gosnell, who you've already met. Here to speak about House 529 and public school policy is just not what I'm going to talk about. And Massachusetts supports schools for children, their teachers, collaboratively. Part of what's here to teachers is authentic voice in schools. Because 529 eliminates voice for educators and dramatically increased the number of schools with critical issues of extending the school day, extension of turnaround plans, Horace Mann charter schools and innovation schools, A&T Massachusetts proposes 529. Promoting school success cannot be a euphemism for denying educators a voice in their school's future. As you've heard mentioned many times this morning, collaboration is the key. It unlocks a synergy that can dramatically improve schools. We have seen it across the Commonwealth in schools that we've participated in, that our colleagues at the MTA have participated in. Lowell, as Tom talked about earlier, Salem, and Lynn, and Boston, and a host of communities. And the key there is collaboration. I think that most of, if not all of you, agree that educators' voice is important, that most of, if not all of you, also agree that they're key to improving solutions, developing solutions for improving public schools. I think a perfect example of that collaboration between Richard and the superintendent when to identify a key leader for the Orchard Garden School. If we agree that they are key to improving schools, don't they deserve to have a meaningful voice in school improvement? Now, the purposes of brevity, we've committed your testimony on this issue. I'll turn it over to Jessica and John.
Good morning. I'm Jessica Tang, and I'm a BPS teacher leader, and I'm here to testify on the mayor's proposal against the bill to lift the cap on charter schools. I speak on behalf of teachers and students who couldn't be here today and ask that these hearings in the future please happen later in the day so that more of us on the ground can be here and have a voice in the policies that impact us the most. First, I'd like to acknowledge that perhaps these proposals came from the best of intentions. However, I must point out that good intentions do not always result in good consequences, and that is the situation we have here today. Here are some problems with the mayor's proposal. First, it extends turnaround powers and support grants to all preschools, yet the federal funding for such schools has run out. While it promises comparable funding to the 40 or so schools in effect, the current funding of turnaround schools is for only 11 schools. So in other words, the so-called extra funding for these schools would be a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of funding current turnaround schools are getting. Orchard Gardens is often touted as a successful turnaround school, but if every school was given additional resources of BTR, T3 teacher leaders, Bell, additional funding, functional facilities, and an effective school leader, then many more schools could be turned around too without this proposal. Teachers at all schools wish they had the resources and supports that orchard gardens and charters have. While teachers in traditional schools frequently run out of paper and buy their own paper to make copies, teachers at other schools are distributed iPads to help with their instruction. The inequity of resources and their distribution must be addressed if we are to hold all schools equally accountable, and this proposal does not sufficiently do so. Second, extending the school day alone is not a silver bullet to student success. I work in an extended day school, and I know the toll that it takes both on students and teachers. If used wisely, it can expand student opportunities for the arts and meaningful electives and interventions, but this cannot be done well without committed partnerships and a thoughtful rollout, which at this point there is no evidence of. It also cannot be done without compensation, as it currently is being done at schools like Orchard Gardens and Edwards. I am able to work in an extended day school because I don't have children. I'm not taking care of elderly or sick parents, and I choose to. Teachers already spend an incredible amount of their own time after school and on the weekends doing what we need to do to prepare lessons, make phone calls, grade work, upload artifacts for evaluations, attend PD, and so forth. Even if teachers were paid double what we are paid now, I bet most teachers would choose not to work an extended day beyond another 34 minutes because it's just not sustainable and doable. By then, we're just too exhausted and overwhelmed by the amount of work we still need to do when we do get home. Now, there are some positives about the mayor's proposal. It prioritizes enrollment for under-enrolled students with disabilities in ELLs and charter schools, and make sure that charters don't build new schools in areas where new schools aren't even needed. It offers the same transportation services to both charter and district school students. Remember, the new school reassignment process does not mean less money because the district still pays for charter students to get bused all around the city. It also incorporates a rated formula for charter funding, since currently charters get more money per student than they should, considering that they don't serve the students who need the most funding, such as students with severe disabilities. These proposals address many of the reasons that the charter school cap should not be lifted. Bottom line, expanding charters creates more inequity and less resources for the schools that do serve the most vulnerable populations. Please do not be swayed by well-funded campaigns, manufactured surveys, and political pressure. Please do consider the voices of those who are not here, and remember that good intentions do not always equal good outcomes. We need thoughtful plans that reflect the experience and knowledge of those who do this work on the ground every day, and I hope that you'll ask questions.
Chairwoman Senator Chang Diaz, Representative Page, and members of the committee. I am still Tom Gosnell, President of the American Federation of Teachers, Massachusetts. I will focus on just one issue, and that's expanded learning time. And I'm glad it says expanded learning time up there and not extended school day. AFT Massachusetts supports expanded learning time. Let me make that very clear. Expanded learning time means many things. It can mean an extended school day for the students, and that can be very important. For example, during the traditional school day right now, the arts are frequently given very short shrift. This is the time to do the arts. I have cited the Merkland School before. They have expanded learning time. It's the teachers who remain in school at the end of the day to consult and collaborate. And they feel that has the most positive effect on their students. And again, I emphasize, the Merkland's gone from a level 4 school to a level 1 school. An expanded learning day also may mean the development of high-quality professional development for the teachers. But I want to emphasize, the absolutely key thing in getting the most benefits for the kids from expanded learning time is for everyone to collaborate and determining what is the best way to have expanded learning time for our children.
Thank you. Are there any questions for any members of the panel? Senator?
My question is for you, it's a two-part question. One, I'm wondering what is the thing that motivated you to go into teaching the college principal to in college? And secondly, what is that what most likely to try to get?
So I went into teaching. I went to Harvard. I did the undergraduate teacher education program there. And I did it because I was actually tutoring at the Mather School, so I actually know Andrew Boff from way back when, because when I was an undergrad, he was actually a principal there, and I knew Kim Marshall before then. And that was the work that I started doing the most when I was an undergrad, and as a sociology major. I do know a lot about social inequities, but I feel like education is ground zero for a lot of those inequities, and I wanted to do work to confront them. And so my foray into teaching is really about social justice and justice in general. And, you know, what pains me and what brings me here to leave the classroom this morning and actually, you know, step away from my students is that throughout the last 9 years, I've seen so many changes, and I do see a lot of good intentions and people who have good intentions and want to make good changes, but what's not being recognized is the impact that a lot of these policies have on the ground level, and I do see a lot of teacher voice at the ground level too. And so, you know, it actually hurts me to hear what Scott Gibbons says too, because there's so much misinformation out there about really what happens at the school level. The Gavin for 5 years. And actually the reason I left the Gavin before it actually turned up was because the last year I was there, I had 32 students, 34 students over a class size maximum of 28. And I will say too, when I left Harvard, I almost wanted to go teach in a charter school. But then I saw that I visited a bunch of schools and I saw that the need was greater than district schools, so I went there. And then I started getting students who were kicked out of charter schools when my class size is like 28, 30, and then my friends teach charter schools and their class is like 16 and 20. And that's when I began to recognize the inequities in the system. And I left the Gavin because I was burnt out. I couldn't do it anymore. I had 34 times 3 students times 2 because social studies, I don't know if you guys know this, is only half a year for a lot of schools, or in some schools not even existent anymore because of the testing. And so I moved to the Young Achiever School, which is a private school, and I do work an extended day there because of what I love about there is the teacher collaboration, and you know, there are more supports for me there, and I felt like I could last longer at Young Achievers than I was at the traditional school at Gavin. And so when we talk about teachers and change, there's just so much misinformation out there. I mean, the Gavin, you know, or driving it through the mud, the best teachers are at the Gavin. 4 of them actually work at our orchard gardens now. We're all pretty much teacher leaders within the district, so the only 2 social studies teachers there, myself and another teacher, do district work for the whole Department of History and Social Studies for the district. So it wasn't the teachers that was welcome at the Gavin. And the principal there, Les Matthews, worked his butt off. 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Teachers were there constantly till 9 p.m., 10 p.m. And then yet, when you read the media and you read these like stories and sound bites, it sounds like the Gavin was a girl's place where people were working hard. That's just not true. And so I'm motivated to be here and do this work because I read the newspaper, I look at this legislation, and I just, it may be well-intentioned, but it's not really getting to the root of a lot of these problems. And the conversations we're having are disingenuous and just honestly not reflective, I think, of what really, the resources that need to happen and what it really takes at schools like Neighborhood House Charter School, at Up Academy. Why did those changes happen after it was taken over? Imagine what we could have done there with the current staff if we had those same resources that Up has now, or Orchard Gardens. And until we look at equity at a larger scale and look at who's getting what and why they're doing well and who's serving which students, then a lot of these conversations to me are just moot.
A quick question to the panel, just to go into the statement about expanded learning time versus extended school day. I want us to dive a little bit deeper in terms of suggested collaboration. So I've seen, you know, groups like Playworks and others come in and do athletics after school. Me, myself, being a former latchkey kid at 8 or 9, coming home with a lanyard that might be a key hanging around my neck, and representing working class families and thinking about the social inequities of, you know, people being at work for 1 or 2 jobs and what do they do with their children after school, where do they find the resources that are going to teach them art, teamwork and sports and things like that. What are some of the collaborations that you see that will take the burden off of teachers in that extended learning time or extended learning day and really put it back on, I guess, a collaborator or a shared partner?
Well, I would take that last word that you mentioned, collaboration. I think that is the essential thing. It can vary from school to school, what the school sees as a need, or district from district to district. In Boston, they negotiated the schools that have a longer school day for the students, where they have an opportunity to gain things that they cannot during what I would call the traditional school day. In other places, what they have done is they lengthen the time for the professionals to be in school because they believe by their working together, it's going to benefit the students even more. So I think it's very important to understand that it's at the local level. What is important for that school? And that can vary quite a bit. the needs of a school in Boston, Lawrence, or Lowell can be a lot different from the needs of a school in Winchester, Wayland, or Weston.
So in your testimony, there's a comment about teachers not having a voice in the school day. Is that something where teachers want to be able to speak about what they feel their students need the most, whether it is physical activity, whether it is, paints and art? And is that the voice that you're looking for?
Absolutely. I mean, yesterday night, I was at an event actually with the superintendent, sponsored by Teach Plus, and there were tons of teachers there on their own time in the afternoon and the evening, and they're there because they do want a voice. And the number one thing that came out of last night was that teachers need support, and we're not getting support at the school level, we're not getting the professional development we need, and the vast majority of teachers don't wake up and say, I want to be a crappy teacher. You're like, we want to do better, but sometimes a lot of teachers don't know how, and they're put in situations where they're set up to fail. And as far as the partnerships, there are a lot of successful partnerships out there. I mean, I think, just look at some of the models in Citizen Schools, City Year, Berkeley College of Music, my school, we have people come in and teach music. The partnerships are available, but it takes someone to coordinate those partnerships. And the honest truth is a lot of the traditional schools don't have an extra FCOC or somebody to help coordinate those partnerships.
During the testimony, you indicated that we should not be swayed by manufactured data or manufactured studies. Could you clarify that, and could you point to some studies that you think we ought to?
So the one I was actually referencing there is recently I read something in the Bay State Banner about how more African American families are want more charter schools. But if you actually look at who this study was funded by and that they were coached on how to ask questions to get specific data, and this is common, I don't think this is a surprise to anyone, that if you ask certain questions a certain way, you get certain results, and that what they failed to left out in the Bay State Banner article was that the number one concern of parents is actually budget cuts. And so that speaks to a lot of things I've been saying here, is that, money does matter, and I wish that schools would be, successful schools too, and turnaround schools and charter schools would be more honest and transparent about the extra funding and how those resources are used, because other schools need that too, to be successful. And so as far as studies that are more accurate, I can't think of them off the top of my head, but I'm happy to follow up with you and send you some.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Just to give those of you who are waiting some idea of where we are in the hearing, we're almost finished with testimony on each 529. I'd like to recognize Representative Brady, and then we have 2 more people scheduled to testify on each 5. Is there anything else besides this?
I am not.
Consolidate.
I congratulate you on your capacity to stay focused. It's been a long day. Again, Chairwoman Chang-Diaz and Chairwoman Teich and members of the Joint Committee on Education. I'm Tom Gosnell, President of American Federation of Teachers, Massachusetts. Last week, the Boston Globe printed an opinion piece entitled "Lift the Charter School Cap," which acknowledged that persistent poverty-based achievement gaps exist among students in Massachusetts. One of Governor Patrick's reports acknowledged that poverty is pernicious. When students have inadequate dental and medical care, live in substandard housing, or have nutritional deficiencies, their education suffers. In urban areas in particular, poverty abounds. We can never use poverty as an excuse for any achievement gap, but refusal to acknowledge its effect on students means that society will not try to remedy its effect on the education of our students. The Commonwealth's long-established public schools need all the resources they currently have. Indeed, they need more. These public schools welcome all students, including those who are English learners and may even be deficient in their native language, and those who have very substantial special needs. Removing the cap on charter schools will drain money from the very schools that serve all these children from the beginning of the school year to the end of the school year. In addition, the long-established public schools do not have the option and they don't want the option to remove students who are having academic difficulty. What they do want are the resources to help these students achieve. Removing the cap on charter schools will diminish their resources even more. The American Federation of Teachers Massachusetts asks that in the interest of educating all the Commonwealth students, do not remove the current cap on charter schools.
Any questions?